All right, Chris, welcome to Plant Manager Slack Collective's video podcast. Usually, the first question I ask the guests would be, could you please give a quick overview of what you do right now? Like, as if you're talking to an old friend.
Absolutely. So I started a new job and a new career about 7 months ago, and I'm searching for a business to buy. And the way it works is I'm doing something called a search fund. And I have raised money for 2 years of me searching. And that covers two things broadly. One is salary for me, and the other is all of the other overhead and expenses associated with searching, software subscriptions, travel to meet sellers, things like that. So, yeah, I'm basically like, kind of into this new journey. And it's kind of a two-step process where first you're an investor, you're looking
Mm.
for a business to buy and trying to find a great business. And then after that, you're an operator. You run the business as the CEO and are expected to stay with the business in the long term. So, but yeah, before that, I was in product for 14 years.
That's amazing. And then you also went to your Harvard Business School, right? So that's it. I guess in between, then you also got your degree from MBA degree.
Yeah,
And
I
then
did business school and then product management and then search fund.
and
And when I started working in product in 2009, there were not a lot of MBAs, and it was actually a bit of like a difficult thing that I kind of had to explain away.
Mm,
The time I left 6 months ago, I think it was more common and people viewed it as more of a nice to have. But yeah, it was 2009 when I graduated from business school and then started working in product.
yeah, nice. So, what is your hero origin story to be a full-time search fund partner? Because I imagine it's not a lighthearted decision you just make overnight because you had to quit your job, which you weren't even part of leadership position, but Meta, you were being really well there, and you were also a people manager. But then, you had to tell your families and friends that, hey, I'm doing this thing, right? Maybe people are like me, what is this? Right. So, what is your origin story for that?
Yeah, so part of it does tie back to business school. The search fund thing that I'm doing is a typical post MBA thing to do. And
Oh.
today, I think you're seeing more people without MBAs doing it, but it's probably 10% of searchers. Most of them are right out of business school. So it was kind of on my radar because of that. Although search has grown a lot in popularity. So when I graduated in 2009, I think there were three people out of my class of 900 who did a search fund. And I heard that the graduating class last year, there were like 40 or 50 people doing search funds. So there's definitely a lot more interest in the space, a lot more money flowing in, and therefore more people searching. But the reason that I'm searching is due to a classmate and section mate of mine, Katie Laidlaw, and she purchased a company through a search fund in November 2022. And when I read about the acquisition, I didn't really understand how it had come together. So I pinged her and she said, "Oh, I bought it through a search fund." She told me about the process. And the company she bought is pretty big, and it's a tech company or an online company. So that really changed my idea of what was possible with search. Back in 2009, people were buying companies that were much smaller, and there was usually like minimal degree of technology in the businesses.
Mm.
Now, a lot of people are trying to buy software businesses, and people are buying bigger companies. So I talked to Katie, and that was kind of like the first thread that I pulled on. And then after that, it was probably like 7 or 8 months later that I had quit my job and left to search full time.
I see. I remember seeing your LinkedIn post that you basically have seen successes from your classmates, from your network. But what was that spark of trigger, right? There must be a moment, or maybe it's gradual moment, that you want to transition out of tech as a product leader to signing and or finding a business, right? So what was the trigger for you?
Yeah, I think it was really like running to something versus running out of tech. Because
Mm.
other than this, I had no other plans to leave tech. And if not for this, I'd probably still be a product manager. I'd probably still be at Meta
Mm.
because I was genuinely very happy there. Um, So yeah, I think it was more that like this other thing came on my radar, and the things that drew me to it were the chance for more autonomy and more responsibility. And I
Okay.
think in tech companies, PMs do have a lot of responsibility and a lot of ability to, kind of set the direction. Because in a tech company, the product strategy is very aligned with company strategy. But it was an opportunity to get to oversee everything and be a CEO. And I just kind of realized that like that was more exciting than I had like given it credit for, and I realized it was an experience that I wanted to have. So yeah, it just all happened very fast, and met great investors, like met a lot of people who were doing it, and it just felt right. So yeah, I started a new chapter, and so far I've been really happy with it.
That's amazing. I like that you talk about it's you're running towards something, not running away from something. So sounds like this is your passion that, oh, you want to have greater autonomy, right? Maybe not everyone has the energy or time to found a company from scratch. So
Mhm.
if you can apply your business, use your, 20 plus years of expertise in the tech industry, your MBA knowledge to help scale the business. I think that's another way of doing entrepreneurship, right? You don't have to go through the ups and downs of the startup life, which I think is a lot, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that really resonated with me too. Like I have always felt a draw towards entrepreneurship, and I've never had something that I was passionate about enough to start a company and try something from scratch. So and I am getting a lot of ups and downs in the search process. It is very much a roller coaster, and it's been really hard. But yeah, I'm generally like happy with what I'm doing, and glad that I took the lead.
That's amazing. So the next question, speaking of the roller coaster ride, is what is something you have to learn versus unlearn coming from big tech? Because you've worked at all top companies, right? Like Zynga, Meta. There, you also worked at a startup rev, right? What are things you realize? Oh, this is a new field for me. Now I'm running a search firm. I gotta unlearn whatever thinking I've had as a product leader.
Mhm. Um, I think that as a product leader, I was just really obsessed with the product.
Mm,
Whereas looking for a business to buy, I have to be obsessed with the business. And I remember when I started searching, I would often get really pulled into like, what does this company do? And, how does it function and all of that. And now I just go straight to financials first and kind of understand like, how does it make money? So I think there's a much stronger like financial perspective than I'm used to.
mhm,
And yeah, that's been something to like a muscle to build.
mm,
Uh, but other than that, I would say a lot of the skills from product have been really transferable.
mm,
And I'm so happy with all the time that I spent in product. And I think it's made me a better searcher. It will help me be a better CEO. Um, in terms of like big tech skills, I think that one of the biggest things that I got from working in a really big company was the ability to communicate really well, especially
mm,
through writing.
mhm.
And I think that that's helped me a lot with fundraising, with talking to owners. So yeah, a lot of it has been transferable. I think it's mostly been about building new skills that I didn't have before and thinking like an investor rather
Mm.
than like forgetting or unlearning other things.
I see. Interesting. Because so this is my understanding. I think in a big tech company, sometimes you have to take big bets. Does it make sense to pursue this product line? Maybe you do your customer research to find out, oh, there is, I don't know, a 5-10% chance, let's do it. And you have resources of a big company like Meta, they will just help you pursue it. But now, when you're thinking like a business owner, you have to say, is this viable? Maybe you try it for a week and then you realize, oh, it's not hitting the ground. Let's do something else, right? So you have to really pivot. It sounds that you have to be a bit more business savvy. That's the right way of looking at it. Almost playing like a GM role, right? You're a general manager. You have a P&L, you're a controlling. You have to make sure whatever you guys are doing makes sense for the business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's a nice like recap of things, and I think it highlights how there are a lot of similarities. Like I used to tell PMs who worked with me that like a big part of the job is sales
Mhm.
because you're spending the company's most important resource, which is engineering time. Like it's more valuable than money. Because a lot of times companies I worked in were like, they were not dollar constrained, they were more like engineering constrained. And
Right.
that when you have a vision and you want to do something, sales is a big part of that. And like clearly communicating the why and the metrics to show progress and all of that. And the process of buying a business is really similar, where you're looking to, paint a vision of what the business could be, but then you need to bring people along and kind of like, just help convince them, take feedback. And similar to product management, sometimes you'll get feedback or hear things from investors that you might choose to say, okay, I hear you, but like I disagree, and here's why. Sometimes you want to roll it in, and you can't just take everyone's opinion and mash it together into a Frankenstein of like, okay, then this is what I think. You need to be opinionated and like know where you're saying yes and no to the input that you're getting.
Mm.
But yeah, very, very similar system in some ways, but then the difference is that you are deploying dollars instead of engineering time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you had to describe if there was a typical day, what would that look like? So for a product manager or for a people manager that you were at head of, maybe you have, I don't know, 85% are meetings, right? And then
Mhm.
10% buying and dues and communication, getting alignment from different cross-functional partners. Maybe another 5% talking to sales. And I guess as an individual contributor that I am, most of my time are talking to customers, running RDs and stuff. But then if you have a typical day right now, what will that look like for you, right? Because it's not in tech. Well, I guess maybe it's still in tech. It's like a search, right?
Yeah, I think similar to product management, it's kind of haphazard. Like days are not very predictable, but like if you zoom out, like there are kind of like three broad things that I'm doing. So the first is generating ideas about industries that I want to reach out to.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of what you're trying to do with a search fund is buy a company in a really great industry, and
Mm-hmm.
meaning that like the industry itself is going to grow a lot over the next few years, and that just by virtue of being in that space the company is probably going to do pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to compare it to buying a house, I would think of it like buying a house in a good neighborhood where
Yeah,
like the
that's very
neighborhood is
powerful.
kind of up and coming, and you kind of need to thread the needle because you also can't buy something in an industry that's super hot and is therefore too expensive. So you're trying to find these industries when they're like really poised for growth in the next 5 years, but also not super mature. Also, as
Mm,
industries are more mature, they get more consolidated. So you're looking for industries where like there are smaller players, things are still more fragmented, but there's a lot of growth ahead.
mm,
Uh, so that's kind of the first activity or thing I do, which is more kind of academic or strategic. And
mhm,
it's often built around like identifying big trends and then figuring out the businesses that will feed off those trends in the coming years.
mm.
For example, one trend that I'm doing a lot of research around right now is data center build out.
Yeah.
It was just up and to the right to begin with, and then all the LLM and AI stuff has made it that much bigger. And there are a lot of services around around the data center world that help them get built and maintained and upgraded. So that's the first bucket of activities is like thinking about trends and finding industries that are impacted by those trends. The second step is the actual operationalizing of like the outreach to these
Mm,
industries. And that's a combination of email, phone, handwritten letters, but just different ways to reach business owners and try to get them on the phone.
mm.
It's basically sales. Like it's like cold, outbound
I really
sales.
like it.
So I've learned a lot about the sales process. I've learned how a lot of sales is actually like lead generation, having a really healthy top of funnel. Um, so that's kind of the second activity. That takes up a lot of time. That's probably like the bulk of it is
Mm,
just talking with owners and just seeing if there's a fit on both sides. And then the third activity is company evaluation. So
mhm,
this comes after you have information about a company. That could be financials, owner conversation, things like that. And that's the process of saying, am I interested in going deeper in the funnel with this particular company?
mm,
And that's the part where like I've learned a lot in the last 7 months and have much more intuition. I think intuition is super important in product management. I think that people who have been in product for a while, you can kind of just like feel into things. And obviously it's
Yeah.
supported by data and all of that and the rest of the team. But like, I think intuition is super important. And I think the same is true in investing. Because again,
Mm,
they're both kind of investment decision jobs. So I'm building that intuition and I'm able to do the company analysis a lot faster now, and kind of say like yes or no a lot faster than I used to. Everything was so slow for me in the beginning. I was new and just really like not very good. So I'm getting faster and better there. But yeah, I'd probably say it's like 20% industry ideas,
mm,
60% owner conversations and outreach, and 20% company evaluation.
mm. So when we talk about the intuition, right? That's a very interesting topic because it's not like a process, right?
Hmm.
Almost for Facebook interviews, there's always a process thing. That's the one area I was not very good at. So
Hmm.
for you, how did you develop your investment sense, right? Over the last 8 months, you have been searching full time.
Yeah, this is where like I've been really fortunate to be doing a funded search where I'm working with investors.
Mm,
Um, and the short answer is I've learned a ton from my investors.
mm,
Um,
mm,
all of them have been in this for a really long time and have really good muscle memory and intuition. And it's just been through a process of taking things to them and learning why they're interested or not interested. Um, and so again, similar to product management, there's a lot of different opinions, and it's about taking kind of the collective and choosing what I choose to pull from that. Because similar to product, you can't just like say, okay, yes, to what every cross-functional partner says. You do need to have like your own conviction and decision at the end of the day. So yeah, I've been very, very fortunate to like have a great investor group, and I've been soaking it up and learning a ton from them.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think community honestly is the way to go, right? You have
Mhm.
a group of people you can trust, right? They share things with you. That's how you learn from each other. That's amazing. So you have been doing a lot, right? So you are doing a full-time search fund, and you are also teaching a Maven course. Are you still teaching that?
So I think I'm going to do another iteration. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. Not I think. I will be doing another
Okay.
iteration. It may be asynchronous as
Okay.
opposed
Okay.
to on Maven.
Sounds
Uh,
good. I'll make sure when we publish this newsletter, I'll link it in the article.
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes, of course. So okay, so you have that. So search time full time and search fund full time and Maven class. And I think you also have a newsletter. You started it. What else are you doing right now?
Family. I have a
Family, that's right.
12-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old son. I spend a lot of time with my wife. Honestly, though, that's been it. It's been like work and family, and that's been
Mhm.
all I've had time for. Social stuff, the other stuff is like really suffered. I've been working a lot lately.
Yeah.
But the money I raised, it's only for 2 years. It's for like a discrete period of time. So I've never had a job with an expiration date on it before, but it's making me work extra hard.
Yeah.
I don't like I'm okay if I don't acquire something, like I could be at peace with that, but
Mm,
only if I felt like I didn't have anything left in the tank at the end of it,
mm,
really, really giving it my best. So
yeah.
I'm just trying to put in that level of effort every day. Um, and I think, yeah, as I get my feet on the ground more, I'm a little more comfortable taking some time for myself. But generally, I've just kind of been in like fear and excitement mode and working a lot, and but also making time to be with my kids and my wife.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I mean, once you successfully acquire the business, now you're gonna run it. So that's a new excitement phase that you will be the CEO of the company. So that's like a new chapter, right? So what is your goal after the next 3 to 5 years for your search fund and also running a business, right? So you talk about this iteration date, that's 2 years. So
Hmm.
what's your long-term goal? I guess 3 to 5, maybe it's a short-term, medium-term goal. What's your medium-term goals?
Yeah, so I would hope to acquire something this year, like
Mm,
ideally in the 2024 calendar year. And
mm,
then in terms of operating the company, like I don't know how long I would want to stay, but the goal is to find something that I could see myself being at for decades, where I
mm,
like the business and the space that much. But I also realized that like the job you take is never the same as the job you leave, and things change over time. But generally, like I'm trying to find something where I can stay in it for the long term.
Yeah, yeah. I like that you have a long-term mindset already, right? I think usually when you work for somebody else, it's, oh, I'm gonna stay here for 5 years. I don't
Yeah.
think many people will say, I'm gonna stay here for 10 years, right? So that's
Mhm.
true. If you lead a company, you have to have a more long-term focus, right? It's not a job that you can just quit, right? Because you take your time to acquire the business, you are responsible for the employees, for the future, the all of the company. So now you're really kind of pulling the parts and efforts into making it successful. I see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other factor, at least for me, that matters a lot is I would have a really significant ownership stake in the company. And
Hmm.
that would keep me feeling like, oh, I want to stay here in the long term and like keep doing this. Whereas in other tech jobs, my ownership percentage has always been so minuscule that it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a different motivation, I think, when you own one of the company.
That is true. That is true. Usually, when you work for somebody else, I mean, there are things that's within your control. There are things also out of your control, right? There are people who work really hard, but they're stopped because feel plotted. Versus, I think Meta stock is doing pretty well right now. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It got like a lot better after I left, and honestly, it's hard to watch. So I hope this works out because yeah, it really took off after I left.
Yeah. Well, you set up a good foundation, so that's why it didn't take off after you left, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're reaping the benefits.
All right. One last question, Zay. Do you have any tips for people who might want to do something similar or collaborate with you? I mean, yeah, these people could be college graduates, right? Or they could be people who have a lot of product leadership experiences or engineering leadership experiences like you, or people who could be in mid-career like me, right? So if anybody who's interested in this kind of career path you take, or wants to learn from you, collaborate with you, what is the best tip or how should they reach out?
Um, I think in terms of like directly working together, I do hire interns. I'm not hiring right now. I'm still trying to get the intern model kind of figured out.
Mm.
Um, it's been tricky. I've never managed people before who did not rely on the job as a full-time source of income. So that's been
Oh,
interesting. It's a different dynamic and
yeah.
trying to figure out ways to keep it interesting for people, and also like get a predictable amount of work back in exchange. But I would say like subscribe to my newsletter. I'm gonna be writing again soon, probably
Okay.
next. And then just reply to that, and I check that. Um, if you're interested in entrepreneurship through acquisition, I am going to do another go at the course. The purpose of the course was basically figuring out like, if I were to do this, what would I be doing? How much money could I make?
Mm.
What are the activities involved? And it's kind of assessing like the two major flavors of doing this. One is doing a search fund, which is what I did. The other is doing self-funded search, where you don't work with an investor group and you use a form of debt that's government called an SBA loan. So they're more similar than different, but there's pretty big differences between them as well. So, but yeah, I think subscribe to the newsletter. Like that's probably the best way.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds good. How long will your course be? You said potentially it's asynchronous.
Yeah, if I do an asynchronous version, I don't know. It's probably like 2 to 3 hours of content. When I
Okay.
did the main course, it was closer to 4 hours, but there was a lot of like back and forth and Q&A.
Mm.
Uh, so that was really helpful for me because it helped me learn like where were things crisp, where were they not. It was basically the MVP of like putting this out there, and I just need to basically comb through all of that and figure out what an asynchronous version would look like. I also might do another go on Maven.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Let me start recording right now.
Okay.